If you ever sat in a tactical operations center, you know the rhythm of target adjudication. It isn't chaotic, it's quiet, it's procedural. You don't just decide to blow something up. You follow a process, a rigorous step by step checklist designed to ensure that when you put warheads on foreheads, the target is destroyed. In the military, we call this the kill chain. The acronym is F2T2EA: Find, Fix, Track, Target, Engage, Assess. It is the universal language of modern warfare. It is how you take a terrorist leader off the board. It is how you take kinetic action on an enemy radar system. But what if I told you that the exact same doctrine, the exact same 6-step process is being used right now in your hometown? But the target isn't a terrorist. The target isn't a tank. The target is your local public school. The target is your library. The target is your family. Welcome back to the False Foundation. I'm Jim. On Saturday, we walked through the history of the Council for National Policy. We talked about the architects, Paul Weyrich, the billionaires, the theologians. We built the profile of the enemy. Today, we are opening the field manual. We are going to look at the operations. I'm going to show you exactly how the machine works. We are going to map the cognitive kill chain step by step. By the end of this episode, you won't just see culture war headlines anymore. You will see the targeting cycle. Before we go to the field, we need to define our terms. Civilians hear kill chain and they think it's just a cool action movie phrase. It isn't. It is a doctrine. So let's break down the acronym so we are all speaking the same language. F, find. Identify the target. Who is the enemy? Where are they operating? In cognitive warfare, this means identifying a specific demographic of voters you can manipulate. Second F, fix. Pin the target down. In combat, this means suppressive fire. In politics, it means identifying a wedge issue that freezes the target in a state of fear. T, track. Monitor the target. Watch how they react. Feed them a specific propaganda and see if they click on it. Second T, target. Select the weapon. Do we use a lawsuit, a piece of legislation, a viral video? E, engage. Strike, pull the trigger, pass the bill, sue the school board. A, assess. Battle damage assessment, or BDA. Did it work? Did the school collapse? Did the voters turn out? If yes, reload and do it again. This is the cycle. And for the last 5 years, the Council for National Policy has been running this cycle on a loop. They have multiple targets in 7 key areas. Today, we'll talk about 2 of the top priorities. Target Alpha, the money, public education. Target Bravo, the control, the family. Let's start with the money. Kill chain Alpha, the schools. If you listen to the media, you think the fight over public schools is about wokeness. You think it's about critical race theory, CRT, or books with gay characters or pornography in the library. That is the fix. That is the distraction. The objective is a bank heist. The United States spends roughly $800 billion a year on K-12 public education. That is a massive pile of money. And for 50 years, the religious right has looked at that pile of money with envy. They hate that it goes to unionized teachers. They hate that it goes to secular institutions. They want that money. But they can't just steal it. They have to convince you to give it to them. The goal is to convert your public funds into their private war chest. Here is how they ran the kill chain to pull off the greatest wealth transfer in American history. Phase 1, find. The vulnerability. The strategists at the Heritage Foundation and the CNP needed a target audience. They looked at the data. They found the suburban mom, specifically the security mom. This is a voter who is normally moderate. She cares about her kids. She trusts her teachers. She likes her public school. But she has a biological vulnerability. She will do anything to protect her child from a threat. So the CNP identified her as the target. Mission: break her trust in the public school system. Phase 2, fix. The narrative. How do you break trust? You create a secret. You have to convince this mom that the school is hiding something from her. This is where the parental rights narrative was born. It sounds innocent. Who could be against parental rights? But look at the subtext. The narrative they pushed was, the school is keeping secrets. They are changing your child's gender behind your back. They are teaching your white child to hate themselves, and they aren't telling you. They froze the target with paranoia. Suddenly, the teacher isn't a partner. The teacher is a suspect. The principal isn't a community leader. The principal is a groomer. I want to call a pause X on the battlefield for a second because we need to talk about the logistics of this conspiracy. The CNP wants you to believe that your local elementary school is a sophisticated indoctrination camp. They want you to believe that Mrs. Higgins, the 63-year-old librarian who wears cat sweaters, is actually a deep state operative running a sleeper cell of radical Marxists. If you have ever worked in government, or if you have ever just been to a PTA meeting, you know how insane this is. We are talking about a school system that is still running on Windows 95. We're talking about teachers who have to buy their own chalk and Kleenex because the budget ran out in October. And yet, we are supposed to believe that these same people, who can't get the copier to work without jamming, are successfully coordinating a nationwide secret gender transition program without a single email leaking? Come on, I was in the military. I know what a conspiracy looks like. It takes paperwork, it takes meetings, it takes a budget. Public education doesn't have any of those things. The idea that the teachers' union is efficient enough to brainwash a generation is giving them way too much credit. They can barely coordinate the bus schedule. And yet, the right buys it. Why? Because they have zero intel discipline. Do you remember the litter box panic? Last year, we had actual elected officials, senators, going on television and claiming the schools were putting litter boxes in the bathrooms for children who identified as furries or cats. A U.S. senator stood at a podium and said that with a straight face. Now, any E3 with a smartphone could have fact-checked that in 30 seconds. Is there a litter box? No. It was a hoax started on 4chan by a teenager. But they didn't check. They didn't verify. They just ran with it. This is important to remember. Yes, these people are dangerous. Yes, they are well-funded. But they are also gullible. They are living in a fantasy world where demons are real, where Barbie is a psychological weapon, and where the kids are using litter boxes. They are terrified of everything. And when you realize that, they stop being scary monsters and they just start looking like what they actually are. Paranoid people who need to touch grass. But here's the problem. Stupid people with power are dangerous. They might believe a lie, but the laws they pass have real consequences. So let's look at the damage. Phase 3, track, the amygdala hijack. This is where the cognitive warfare gets dirty. They needed to escalate the fear from concern to panic. Enter Christopher Rufo. Rufo is a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, a CNP-adjacent think tank. He explicitly admitted his strategy on Twitter. He said, quote, "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic." End quote. He admitted it. It was a psyop. They tracked the engagement. They saw that words like groomer and pedophile triggered a massive emotional response. It's called an amygdala hijack, when the brain perceives a threat to a child and the prefrontal cortex, the logic center, shuts down, and the amygdala, the fear center, takes over. A terrified parent cannot read a curriculum, they can only react. Phase 4, target, the weapon. Now that the parent is terrified, you offer them the weapon. You offer them the exit strategy, but you don't call it privatization. That sounds corporate. That sounds like a hedge fund. You call it school choice. You call it an ESA, or education savings account. This was the genius pivot. In the old days, they tried to sell vouchers. Voters hated vouchers because they realized it hurt public schools, so they rebranded. It's not a voucher, it's an ESA. It's like a debit card for your child's future. The weapon was loaded. A piece of legislation that allows you to take your tax dollars out of the public school and put them in your pocket. Phase 5, engage, the wealth transfer. They pulled the trigger. Arizona, Florida, Iowa, Arkansas, state after state passed universal ESA bills. They sold it by parading poor minority families in front of the cameras. This is for little Timmy in the inner city. He needs to escape his failing school. But let's look at the battle damage assessment. Let's look at the receipts. In Arizona, once the program opened, who applied? Did the poor kids apply? No. 80% of the applicants were already in private school. In Florida, 69% were already in private school, and 44% came from families making over $120,000 a year. Do you see the heist? They use the fear of groomers to trick the public into voting for a program that is nothing more than a tax rebate for the rich. We didn't save Timmy. We just paid for the country club membership for a family driving a Range Rover. And we paid for it by draining the budget of the public school that teaches the mechanics kids. Phase 6, assess. The consolidation. The final stage. The public schools are now underfunded. They have to cut art, music, and special ed. The test scores drop, and the CNP points and says, see, government schools don't work. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You break the leg, and then you blame the runner for limping. Meanwhile, that money flows directly into the private religious network. It builds the war chest for the next phase. So that was Kill Chain Alpha. That was the money. Now let's talk about Kill Chain Bravo, because they don't just want your cash, they want your obedience. This kill chain is about control, and the weapon of choice here is the word family. If you look at the membership of the CNP, you see names like Focus on the Family from James Dobson and the Family Research Council, Tony Perkins. They love that word. It's warm, it's fuzzy, it's apple pie. But when they say family, they don't mean people who love each other. They mean a specific, rigid, patriarchal hierarchy. Father over mother, mother over child, God over father. Anything that threatens that hierarchy, feminism, gay marriage, trans existence, is not just different, it's an existential threat to the family. Before we get to the dark stuff, we have to talk about the costume. Because if you scroll through Instagram or TikTok right now, you have definitely seen the soft power side of this operation. We call it the trad wife aesthetic. You know the look. It's a 22-year-old woman in a beige linen dress, barefoot in a wheat field. She's holding a sourdough starter kit like it's the baby Jesus. The lighting is perfect. The caption says something about returning to biblical womanhood and submitting to your husband's leadership. It looks like Little House on the Prairie if Ma Ingalls had a ring light and an Amazon affiliates link. Let's be real for a second. This is LARPing. For the civilians, that stands for live action roleplay. These are people cosplaying as 19th century homesteaders, but they are doing it from a $700,000 house in the suburbs with a dishwasher and high-speed internet. They are selling you a fantasy of the simple life. But notice what is missing from the fantasy. They never show you the dysentery. They never show you the 14-hour days of manual labor. They never show you the fact that in the actual 1850s, women died in childbirth at terrifying rates and couldn't even open a bank account. It's funny to laugh at the sourdough cult, but we need to recognize it for what it is. Recruitment propaganda. In the military, we call this influence operations. The CNP knows they can't sell patriarchy to a modern woman by screaming at her, so they have to sell it with filters. They make submission look like self-care. They tell young women, the world is scary, the workplace is stressful, come back to the kitchen, let a man make all the decisions, it's safer here, it's softer here. But here's the kicker. This trad life relies on a massive amount of privilege. Biblical submission is a lot easier to swallow when your husband is a tech bro or a hedge fund manager. Try selling that soft life to a woman whose husband works 2 shifts at the Amazon warehouse and comes home angry. Try telling a woman in an abusive marriage that her only role is to bake bread and be quiet. That isn't an aesthetic. That is a prison. And that is the trap. The trad wife is the bait. The authoritarian family is the hook. They get you to buy the linen dress, and then they lock the door. And God help you if you don't fit into the dress. God help you if you're the wrong kind of woman, or worse, you aren't a woman at all. And that brings us to the people who don't fit the aesthetic, because the ideal family requires an enemy. Let's run the F2T2EA on how they're attacking the LGBTQ community. Phase 1, find the other. Every authoritarian movement needs an outgroup. They need a scapegoat. For a long time, it was gay marriage, but they lost that war. Obergefell passed. The culture moved on. So they needed a new target, a target that was smaller, more vulnerable, and harder for the average person to understand. They found the transgender community, specifically trans kids. It was the perfect target. It involves children, triggering the protective instinct, and biology, triggering the confusion disgust response in people who aren't educated on the topic. Phase 2, fix, the contagion. They couldn't just say, we hate trans people, that's too mean. So they framed it as social contagion. They pinned the target with the narrative, the trans agenda is coming for your child. You heard the talking points explode all at once. Rapid onset gender dysphoria, a debunked theory. Schools are transitioning kids, a lie. They are mutilating children, a graphic distortion of medical care. They fixed the target as a medical threat to the nation's youth. Phase 3, track, the legal network. This is where the Alliance Defending Freedom enters the fight. The ADF is the legal special forces of the CNP. They are listed as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Why? Because they have supported the criminalization of homosexuality abroad. The ADF also happens to be Speaker of the House Mike Johnson's former employer. They tracked the parental rights momentum we talked about in Kill Chain Alpha and realized they could use the exact same language to attack trans kids. Phase 4, the target, the paradox. This is the most cynical part of the entire operation. I want you to listen closely because this is the false foundation. In Kill Chain Alpha, schools, they argued for parental rights. They screamed, the state has no right to tell a parent how to educate their child. The parent is king. But in Kill Chain Bravo, trans kids, they argue the exact opposite. When a parent decides to support their trans child, when a parent decides to follow the advice of a doctor and the American Medical Association, what does the CNP do? They pass laws banning that care. They pass laws threatening to remove the child from the home. Wait a minute. I thought parents had the ultimate authority. I thought the state wasn't supposed to interfere in the family. Here is the dark truth. They don't believe in parental rights. They believe in my rights. If you are a fundamental Christian parent who wants to pull your kid out of the science class, total freedom. If you are a liberal parent who wants to get your child health care, total state control. The hypocrisy isn't a bug, it's a feature. The goal isn't freedom, the goal is to force their definition of morality on your family. Phase 5, engage, the legislation. Project 2025 is the engage order. If you read the document, and I have, all 900 pages, the language on the family is terrifying. They explicitly state that the goal of the Department of Health and Human Services should be to maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and the family. They want to, 1, remove non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people. 2, defund any program that mentions diversity, equity, and inclusion. 3, criminalize the mailing of abortion pills using the Comstock Act from the 1800s. And 4, equate transgender ideology with pornography and then ban it. This isn't theoretical. Look at the legislation sweeping the country. Tennessee, Texas, Florida, they are banning books. They are banning healthcare. They are banning words. They are engaging the target with the full force of the state. Phase 6, assess, the erasure. What is the result? The suicide rate among trans youth is skyrocketing. Families are fleeing states like Florida, becoming domestic refugees to protect their kids. Doctors are leaving states because they are afraid of going to jail for practicing medicine. The family has been protected by destroying thousands of actual families. So why does this matter to you? Jim, I don't have a trans kid. I don't go to public school. Why should I care? Because the kill chain doesn't stop. It can't stop. That is the nature of the machine. Once they have perfected the mechanism, once they know how they can use fear to strip rights and transfer wealth, they will turn the weapon on the next target. Maybe next time it's birth control. Spoiler alert, they are already talking about Griswold v. Connecticut. Maybe next time it's no-fault divorce. Spoiler alert, the FRC is already lobbying to end it. Maybe next time it's your church, because it isn't the right kind of Christian. The Council for National Policy has built a weapon. They have mastered the targeting cycle of cognitive warfare. They have the money, the Wilkes brothers. They have the muscle, the ADF. They have the mouth, the pastors. But weapons have a weakness. They rely on stealth. A kill chain only works if the target doesn't know they're being tracked. If you know you are being painted by a laser, you can move. You can jam the signal. You can fight back. That is why we are doing this podcast. That is why I'm giving you the receipts. Because the only way to break the kill chain is to interrupt the cycle. Interrupt the find. Reject the labels. When they try to categorize your neighbors as groomers or enemies, refuse to accept the target package. Interrupt the fix. Expose the secret. When they scream about parental rights, ask the hard question. Does that apply to the parent of the trans kid? Does that apply to the parent who wants their kid to learn about slavery? Point out the paradox. Jam the narrative. Interrupt the engagement. Follow the money. When they push a school choice bill, look at the bank account. Show your neighbors that it's a scam. Show them the Arizona numbers. This isn't for Timmy. This is for the country club. We called this series The False Foundation because everything they build is based on a lie. They say liberty, but they mean control. They say family, but they mean hierarchy. They say faith, but they mean power. We know the architects. We know the doctrine. Now, the defense of the Republic is up to you. Don't let them paint the target. This has been False Foundation. I'm Jim. If you learned something, tell a friend. If you got mad, tell me. You can email me at jim@falsefoundation.com. I read everything, even the hate mail. If you'd like to join us, go over to patreon.com/falsefoundation. We'd love the support. Thank you for listening.